This episode of the Zelos podcast is sponsored by Perform Better. Perform Better is the leader in functional training by supplying innovative products and top-notch education to trainers, coaches, and therapists. Check out the brand new Perform Better app, designed for professionals who want to stay on top of their game. This free app features education from the world's best. You'll learn from industry leaders including Mike Boyle, Gray Cook, Sue Falzoni, Charlie Weingroff, and many more. Topics range from strength and conditioning, program design, nutrition, business, and marketing. Just go to performbetter.com. Welcome to another episode of the Zelos podcast. I'm Rocky Snyder, and with me this week, I just can't expand upon all the accomplishments this woman has made in her life, but we're going to try and touch upon them in the time that we have, but we're going to run out of time. So maybe we can have this person on again for part 2 of the story. But Lee Brandon, we've been doing this series of women trend setting in the NFL and Major League Baseball and across the fields of professional sports. Well, this is a woman who hasn't gotten the accolades that she should, because back in 1991, she was a strength and conditioning coach for the New York Jets. But with a name like Lee Brandon, I think it's probably because everyone thought that Lee had a male parentheses after the name, when in fact Lee Brandon is far from anything like that. So Lee, welcome to the Zelos podcast.
Thank you, Rocky. And that's I was actually there for 2 seasons, 90 and 91. I was there for over a year and a half, spring, preseason 1990, all the way with the New York Jets. I was hired by Coach Greg McCready, who was the head strength and conditioning coach for the New York Jets. I was the head strength coach at Hofstra University, starting back in 1985. And when those jobs came up at the end of 1989, I was approached by a dear friend of mine who is still the provost at Hofstra University's recreation. And she said, Lee, get me your resume. The Jets are here using the recreation facility, because at that time, the New York Jets were owned by Mr. Leon Hess, and they utilized the Hofstra facility. That was the original Hofstra facility under that administration. Uh-huh. And so I gave her my resume, and it's a very funny story how I came up with Lee, because that wasn't my birth name. My birth name, I usually used to tell people that I'd have to kill them if I told them, but I'm disclosing it now because I'm old enough now that people don't make fun of me anymore. I just that was part of what drove me getting so strong. I had to start lifting weights to survive the bullying of my given name.
Okay, you tell me yours and I'll tell you mine, because Rocky is not my birth given name.
I got my mom. This was conference calling in 1989. I had 2 phones. I dialed my mom on one. I dialed my dad on the other one. Here's my mom in New York, my dad in Oklahoma. And I'm talking to both of them this way. I'm like, I don't know. So this was conference calling back in 1990. I'm just setting the scene for how long ago this was. We're talking, 2 to 3 years before Ruth Bader Ginsburg was even nominated into the Supreme Court. We're talking when computers, I didn't even have a computer, own a computer. This is when we all had typewriters. Right. Cell phones didn't exist then. Film went through a thing, you push a button and it would bzz or spit out, or you'd have to drive it to, you don't even know any of those they're antiques now. That was how long ago this was. So my conference call with my mom and my dad was, Mom, I love you. Dad, I love you. I don't know why you named me this name. It was Bertha. I said, but my resume is being submitted to the New York Jets. And if you know anything about the culture back then, it was Basement Bertha, the cartoonist, because the Jets were in the basement for a long time. So it was Basement Bertha. Then there was a song, Bertha Butt. And I was beat up and just absolutely forced to start, lifting weights to survive, being a Southern girl, moved from Southern Georgia all the way up to New York at the age of 7. So that was how my strength training began very early on. So I told them, I said, listen, I love you both. Maybe when I turn 60, I'll put back on the Eartha. But for today, it's just going to be Lee Brandon, and that's it. So, that has truly been my given and formal name since I've changed all my papers. Best decision I ever made.
Wow.
However, when I submitted my resume via Pat Montagano, who's the provost at Hofstra, she put it in there. I was blessed at the time to have already been an Olympic coach for the '84 Olympics, assisting Dr. Harry Snyder. and had been very involved. I was the head strength coach at Hofstra. So my resume I was blessed to already have a lot of experience at such a young age. So in 1989, we had submitted it at the end of 89, and in the early January, February, I was hired in 1990 by the New York Jets, by Coach McCready. Wow. And my title was the Assistant Strength and Conditioning Specialist. And I was brought in and I worked with Pepper Burris, who was the head athletic trainer at the time. Pepper went on and has had an amazing, illustrious career, since retired from Green Bay Packers, but he was there his whole career. Still in touch with a lot of the guys, hey, Pepper, hey, Joe, Trevor Maddich. I mean, I could throw a whole lot of names at you. Still in touch with Coach McCready. And at some point, the two of us are going to be shouting out to the universe the truth of what those coaches at that time and those players did, which was so visionary, and the risk that they took. It wasn't popular then to bring a woman in the door, but Coach had the courage to offer me a position. And the way things were done back then was on a handshake. You didn't sign contracts. There wasn't a big HR hoopla. There was, 30 years ago, that was the way it rolled. 31 now. So when I was hired, it was like, yep, I want you here. He tested me out. He sent me over with a huge offensive lineman, Brett Miller, and, the rest was history. I had to take him through his workout, and the whole gym stopped when I deadlifted over 600 pounds off of his chest. So that was the way that went down, so I feel very blessed. I never saw myself as a woman going in to do a job, but a teacher. I never saw myself as anything other than this was what I was meant to do. This was my passion. I was meant to be a teacher, a coach. And oftentimes teachers are always behind the scenes and don't receive the credit that they deserve. Even nowadays, most teachers are life-changing in students' lives. And I always I always thanked God that my ability to teach great biomechanics, my ability to understand movement, my ability to lift weights had nothing to do with gender. It's all non-gendered stuff. So
well, when you present yourself in such a fashion, then people are going to see you as you see yourself, right? They're not going to see a female coach. They're going to see a coach, right? They're not going to put any labels on it. And so
I agree. But also I think what really helped me, honestly, is the fact that I had the worst mullet you've ever seen. So
nice.
No, you couldn't tell. I looked like you really couldn't tell, except for my neon outfits. Anyway,
now, just curious,
comedy in there.
Was Pete Carroll the head coach at that time too?
Pete Carroll was there. Yes.
Yeah. He was the defensive coordinator, wasn't he?
He was the defensive coordinator along with Coach Greg Robinson. Yes. And I worked more with Coach Greg Robinson. I have a picture of us together in New York Times. You can see it it's on my, like at Lee Brandon Inc. on my Instagram or on the website. I have all of these things up on LinkedIn, which are really wonderful. I was blessed to go back and even find an old original 1099 from them paying me, so whether it was, looking back now, I think the biggest argument is that I don't know. I mean, it's been published in Sports Illustrated. I was blessed with my long drive career to be in Sports Illustrated twice, over 40 in my swimsuit, which was frightening at the time. Now I look back 20 years later going, I look pretty good. That was fun. At the time I was mortified, but I think truly that, I've been very, very blessed in my career, and I just haven't let, any no stop me, and just sort of, COVID, things happen, life happens. It rains on all of us, and so, that's what I see is with the way that the industry has shifted, it's nothing but a huge celebration. And I also see it as a parabolic curve. These coaches here on this side of this parabolic curve took such courageous choices to bring me in and hire me. And I'm looking back, not egregiously, I'm looking back to celebrate the courage of them, celebrate the fact that I was there and I did my job. I was seen and not heard. I did it well. I did it so well, it's almost disappeared. But to me, at this point, whether I was green, purple, straight, gay, male, female, none of that even matters. You can't do a job and have it disappear. That's the part that's not okay for me. Otherwise, your job, all these young women's jobs and all of their titles, if mine could go away that easily, and I was there a year and a half, to me, it's worth standing up for. It hasn't been about me blowing my horn, because God has blessed me in so many ways. I didn't design my career around being the first. I designed my career around trying to be a lover of movement and a servant to mankind, and try to share my love of life. And I'm just still standing in to say, hey, listen, that just can't go away, not because of me, but for all of us, paying it forward. It's something we truly need to, that needs to be acknowledged and honored. And that's my only reason I'm even chatting with you, because I'm not one to blow my own horn. It's not my way. So.
Well, and that's obvious that you're just following your heart and your passion, because where you went from there, and even previous to your time with the Jets, how you not only got there, but that your life path. I mean, it's not that you're standing on the mountaintop and saying, look at me. It's like, oh, look at that next mountaintop I want to climb. And then look at that one over there. You've just been climbing mountain after mountain, and it's not just with the NFL. So let's go back in time a little bit more, if we could, to what. Yeah, I know this story because you just shared it with me off the air, but you just told me you deadlifted 600 pounds off a lineman when he's bench pressing, but that's using both arms. But one of those arms almost didn't stay with you. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was February 27th, 1979, and I was playing a county playoff basketball game out at Ward Melville High School on Long Island. Off the court and went to walk into the locker room, looking behind me, talking with a few friends of mine whom I'm still friends with today, which is just such a blessing there of them by that as well. But they saw the glass as I went to walk through the door. It was one of those long, thin glass, heavy doors that was a push door without a crash bar, just had a hand plate, but I wasn't paying attention. And I went to walk through the door and it swung open and I fell through and the glass came down like a guillotine. And all but detached my left arm. The only thing still attached was my tricep tendon, and the bone was nicked and cut. However, miraculously, the medial nerve, because the bicep tendon was thoroughly cut all the way up the arm, all of this was sliced from here to here. The mirror, I mean, if you don't believe in miracles once you've met me, I truly believe that maybe I'm just meant to still be alive and tell the story, because it's so easy to be in a world that doesn't seem fair. That seemed very unfair to me. Why do good things happen? I'm sorry, why do bad things happen to good people? And then you see why do good things happen to really bad people? I mean, it just seems like there's such inequity in the world. But at the end of the day, my paradigm was that there must be a great hand someplace. And my personal experience was one that proved to me that I really needed to reroute my life. And that moment changed my life forever, because I died. My experience of death is going to be in a documentary that's going to be coming up soon, highlighting my blessed, storied, crazy life as, being a pioneer in many ways that I've been blessed to do. And I just haven't let no stop me. I find a way to bulldoze under it, around it, and just keep moving. So that near detachment forced me to start trying to find a way, because no physical therapist at the time, they were concerned. They used a controversial surgical clamp to pull my artery down and put it together. I was one of the first controversial surgical clamps they used. Now that's standard in the industry. Mm-hmm. But the visionary, Dr. Kurtz, who did that microsurgery, a micro reattachment, the nerve was traumatized. So I couldn't feel my hand nor my forearm for many years. 7 years later, my hand woke up. But for every single day in that 7 years, I fought. I had a tennis ball in my hand. I would always try to make it hold things. I was feeling sorry for myself going into college because I lost all my athletic scholarships. I went to school on an academic scholarship, which was really tough. I wasn't I was smart, but I had to fight for my grades. I had to really study more than everybody else. And so I went to school on an academic scholarship, and it was a work scholarship. So I had to scrub toilets for 4 years to work my way through school on that work scholarship. The great news with that is that I became the greatest toilet scrubber and the greatest custodian in the history of that school. But it took me the first year to work through my bad attitude of feeling like I had lost everything. And I couldn't do what I needed to do, but I could scrub toilets with one hand and clean. So that was what I did. And then that was when I was blessed to meet Dr. Harry Snyder and his wife, Sarah. They were the head strength coaches for the 84 Olympics, working with Dr. Leroy Perry at the time out of Los Angeles. I went to school in Pasadena. And so I walked into his office with a shot put in one hand because I was a nationally ranked shot put thrower, training as a decathlete at the time. Women did decathlete, not pentathlete, way back then. And a Bible under the other arm, because I was trying to figure out, why I was still here. Because it was obvious to me that there was a reason I was here and I couldn't sort that out. And so I walked into Coach Snyder's office and he looked at me and he goes, "You are just a walking dichotomy, aren't you?" So what I didn't tell you is that he had survived and had osteomyelitis. And here was a man who had a challenged leg, who was an Olympic coach. So his light and his example basically inspired me and planted a seed in my heart. He goes, "You don't have to have two good arms to be a coach. You just have to have a great mind. You need to be able to invest in other people. You need to be willing to be seen and not heard and be behind the scenes and hold other people up." He taught me what being a great strength coach and a great teacher is. Really set the foundation very powerfully. So my near loss that was and could have been devastating. 7 years later, I'll never forget the day my hand woke up. But I told you, every one of those days I taught myself to replay my guitar because I love music. I play guitar. You can't even go into iTunes and Google Lee Brandon. You'll hear the first song I wrote in the hospital in 1979. It's actually on iTunes right now. Wow. It was given to me as a gift from one of my musician clients to record it. She said, "This song is too good to go unheard." So it's out to the universe. And I just had so much fun in the studio recording it. I'm not a musician. Though I did, singer-songwriter, that was always my space that I loved. But the guitar was my healer. Music is always healing. Music and movement, like Hooked on Phonics for children who cannot read. Music and feedback. Damaged engrams from motor learning. So what we know now, I was blessed to stumble on 40 years ago. So that's why I went on and have 9 patents on fitness innovation around reinstating core strength and stability, because I honestly follow the best McGill, Cholowicki, Sullivan, Tomei, all the best researchers in the world. It all comes down to replicating a great spine angle to create more distal speed. So I was blessed at the age of 39 to win my first world championship. I'd never picked up a golf club. That was my rookie year. And I just thought, low and inside pitch, right field fence, let it rip. And I won. And I was,
wait a minute. You were the long drive champion your rookie year?
That's correct.
Are you kidding me?
No, sir. I wish I were, but I told you, if you don't believe in miracles before you hear my story, I was not better than any of the women there. They were all better than me. I'm not sure I didn't hit a sprinkler head, honestly. Now,
well, shot put is all about rotational power. So, if you really think about it, it's like shot put to the long drive championship. Okay, I can.
It was totally intuitive. It was totally intuitive. And I was a nationally ranked softball player. I always hit cleanup. So to me, when I got a golf club, I'm like, this feels like home. This is amazing. So my thought I was thinking was bringing athleticism back in 2001 to the sport of golf. So I was one of the first strength coaches that was talking about posture equals power in golf. I was highlighted on the Golf Channel, highlighting the importance of spine angle and bringing posture and strengthening your lats. And you would never hear about it this day because there have been so much in that interim of 20 years. But all of those pieces exist. And I feel really blessed to have been a pioneer, to have planted the seeds and used myself as a guinea pig with a reattached arm to go on and win 2 international titles was nothing short of miraculous. I mean, anybody can be great once, but can you repeat it? That to me is what blesses us to be great champions, to engineer champions, is they can win one time, but can you repeat the win? And so I've invested my career in assisting people in finding out, how do we replicate greatness? And to me, humbly, it comes down to being able to repeat a great spine angle. And I use my technology to enhance that process so people can see and hear and feel the way the gift of that guitar gave my hand to wake up. One day it woke up because we know now, we didn't know anything about fascia then, but the reroute of my fascia in my body and me forcing that hand to try to hit those notes and then turning it over and teaching myself to play guitar taught my brain to start running that arm. So now this technology is being used to help those who've lost limbs because the same mechanisms work. So one of my biggest passions is like our paramilitary and military amputee programs, helping them with golf, helping amputee programs, because the programs around amputee reattachment, they need to learn how to, these guys are athletes, these for stability. So look at the great Stephanie Victor, who lost both legs to a car accident. And now she's like, what, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, 10-time world champion downhill skier, because she learned to control her core to drive the ski tip. And so if we can assist people who've lost limbs, that takes all of our excuses away for those of us who still have everything still attached.
Honestly, it's a level of awareness on so many different aspects. Not only just the physical awareness, the mental, the emotional. It's just like, just waking up really is what you're saying. It's just, if we can encourage people to truly awaken, then there are no restrictions. It's fantastic.
That's correct. That's right. You just have to compare yourself to yourself, stay in your lane. And like I was telling you before, I wanted to set the tone in this. And I lovingly say, you know, there were no disadvantages in my life, though losing an arm and having it reattached and not having it work for 7 years could be viewed as something I should be whining about. And yet I realized that that disadvantage actually didn't define me, but took me to a new level, because there's not an athlete that comes to me that hasn't lost their career, that wants to reinvent themselves, that I can't relate to. God has, or the universe, that great hand someplace, whether you're religious or not, you know, I have to believe I'm still alive for a reason. So I've been able to help them figure out, though a lot of it does come down to our perspective. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, nothing in my life happened to me, but it happened for me. Nothing happened to me, it happened for me. And that happening for me then has allowed me to truly be able to springboard that into any conversation with an athlete that comes to me whining, going, Coach, I lost my career to my hip. And I'm like, well, then let's reinvent you. Let's figure it out. Let's, you know, I lost my pitching career because of baseball. All right, don't worry. We'll get you back. Let's figure it out. Let's reinvent your talents. Let's figure out, you know, we're not one dimensional. We're multifaceted as human beings. So planting seeds of hope, planting seeds of love, planting seeds that help reinvent those of us who love movement so much. One injury doesn't preempt us from doing great things, which I've been blessed to now actually have a 40-year career as a strength coach. And isn't that a crazy number to even say?
Yeah. So, okay. With this,
and thank God I started when I was 5. So, you know,
the youngest strength coach around. So
I don't want people at home calculating the numbers going, okay, how old is she? Okay.
That's quite, I'm just thinking, like, in terms of your rolling resume in strength conditioning, now Hofstra, yes, and the Olympics, of course, the Jets, and it just kept on rolling through. And one of the most, I'll say, I guess, unique opportunities was on the set of Baywatch. So where did that roll out? It's like, oh, look at you after the NFL. Oh, I guess I'll go hang with Pamela Anderson and the rest of the crew.
Hysterical. Well, I tell you, and yes, it's been a very crazy, blessed career. So I've actually been blessed to work with amazing celebrities that I have the permission to mention their name, though it's not about the celebrity, but people like Kevin Costner, Sly Stallone, have worked with the great Dame Judy and Julie Andrews and her husband Blake. Just the list goes on. And the Baywatch set was really amazing. And you know, sometimes, you know, people don't even know that Anna Nicole Smith and the young man that was killed with her. Gosh, I'm even at a loss for his name now, but David Chokichi was on the set of Baywatch. And so I worked with all of those young men, they all trained together at that time. So, I mean, I've been through many different iterations of my career. But what actually brought me to Los Angeles again was that Coach Arcee at UCLA actually recruited me after the Jets. So
that what happened.
That was what happened. And so I was there on the East Coast. I had been battling some some pneumonia stuff, and I tested positive for tuberculosis, which was a false positive, now we know. Okay. But I had to go upstate New York and became the head volleyball coach at Plattsburgh State. And then from there got recruited down in 93 to coach Arcee in UCLA. So I was always knowing I was going to be going back to the West Coast. But then the riots hit. So on my way driving out, I got a phone call from UCLA that said, sorry, due to the riots, there's a hiring freeze. So I still came, and I got a job at Sports Club LA, where I was blessed to work with many, even, the great Magic Johnson. I was working with a lot of different people and put in a place where I met a lot of celebrities, royalty, people I've been blessed to train from every corner of the world. And I said, well, the money here is amazing, when you go independent. So basically for 30 years, I had been independent, still working as a consultant in the NFL, still consulting major league behind the scenes, under NDA, not to disclose my work with them, because they really wanted to make sure that, there's a lot of, confidentiality when you work at that level. So that was in part what sort of my path. I know that was one of your questions, why I never went back to the NFL. I realized I had applied. It wasn't my lack of trying, but by that point now it was known that I was a woman, and there was a 25-year gap there. And that's why I keep putting out on all my social media, let's celebrate, because I'm so grateful. Even though it took 25 years, at least it has gotten to this point now where the NFL is more inclusive. And I believe they had to reinvent themselves for many reasons, way beyond this conversation.
Yeah, especially within the last year, for sure.
Yeah.
So I would love to just, you've mentioned the patents and inventions. Would you touch upon that?
Sure.
What is it that you're really working with these devices and the approaches that you've created?
Well, what I realized was after my stint with the Jets was over and I handed my keys back in, which was a hard loss for me. So it's hard to lose your job. People can argue with the fact that I'm a woman, but there's two things they can't argue with. One is if you own the patent, then it's proof that you actually invented that intellectual property. Two, because it was always sort of being knocked off. I could do it and then somebody else would come out with it. So I said, well, let me go ahead and do this. So I've been blessed with 9 patents now, which is around this whole postural awareness system. And there have been different devices that have come out in the interim. Just so you know, I'm getting ready to launch a new product that is a version of my original Pro product, which was called the Ab-Inforcer, AB-I-Inforcer. That was used by physical therapists, chiropractors, and it was voted the #1 core trainer in the state of California for 3 or 4 years running by healthcare practitioners. It was in every hospital's physical therapy journals, and all of that's on JOSPT. You can see all that on Google Scholar. Compared to the side plank, because we all know the standards are planking right now for endurance testing. Yeah, I was going to say I've been blessed to invent the hands-free plank. It's what it's looking like.
Gotcha.
And just neck endurance, shoulder problems. Is the plank truly a test of one's neck and shoulder endurance, or is it truly a test of one's core strength? Most people don't even bypass the hip flexors or those 13 flexing dominant muscles to actually, is a plank here, is a plank here. So this basically just takes the rocket science out of planking and gives us a true bilateral, in conjunction with great posture, the ability to do a traditional straight leg raise, scissor moves, 90-90s, numerous things. So this has been my secret sauce in working for the past 20 plus years with elite athletes, Olympians going to the Olympics for, as you see behind me, I've been blessed to work with athletes from all over the world.
So in essence, you had yourself a movement screen before the more famous one emerged.
Oh yeah. And actually I was blessed to even chat with those guys when they came out, because I said, you can't do a movement screen without a head and a neck position, because otherwise then you're throwing out, the concept that the head is a fifth appendage and its awareness. So I was able to challenge some of those teams to rethink the way that that test was done. So I feel very blessed in the sense that I've been able, again, behind the scenes, to be able to be part of a movement trying to purify movement. And again, the universe is always taking care of me, so I'm not going to worry about credit for any of that, because and you may hear a different story, but we all know the truth.
Well, I have been blessed myself to be in the audience at a couple of your presentations, and the information that you share with the industry has just been remarkable and incredibly valuable. And I got into the NSCA right at about the time that you were transitioning over to UCLA. I think it was probably 93 is when I became a strength conditioning specialist. And we had some great professors and great leaders in the industry there, like the Stones, as we mentioned off the air, Meg Ritchie Stone and her husband, and Garhammer, and all the rest that were kind of leading the way with the NSCA. Of course, that it started in 78, but the CSCS began in 85. And so it's very interesting to see the path and the progress within strength and conditioning over the last 30 years, wouldn't you say?
I'm so grateful for this career, because, I think it's one of the greatest things that we could be doing. And that's why I see our niche. I'm concerned about this world of strength and conditioning getting absorbed into more medical protocols. Because to me, I would never pretend to be a medical practitioner. And yet sometimes there's this crossover, and it's sort of skipping the value of all of the experience those of us who really teach movement have been involved in movement. I would never underestimate that world. And I just pray that the industry doesn't underestimate the certified strength and conditioning world, because I truly believe that it is so significant.
Well, and there's such a chasm, isn't there, between what they learn in medical school as a doctor and the strength conditioning specialist or the movement specialist. They're actually learning two separate subject matter, because I think they spend at most 2 weeks of information on biomechanics of the human body in medical school. So yeah, there needs to be a partnering, and I think it's happening in at least in my region, what I'm seeing. So yeah, hopefully that won't be happening. But the other thing about where you began, and I wasn't that far behind you, definitely following in your trails, is that really it's such a young industry and truly a young science that it is only bound to grow and expand more in terms of knowledge and experience. That it's been a wonderful kind of journey to be on this train and watching the landscape change as we go down the rail, and know that it's just improving all the time. And if you, or for that matter myself, can be part of contributing to the emerging landscape, then what a great gift that is for me personally, for you I'm sure too, but and anybody else that may be benefiting from it.
Look at a lot of these young women that I've been honored to be part of their lives. Christy was working, she was the assistant at Tennessee Titans. As you know, Emily Zahler was up at the Broncos.
Yeah.
So the thing is that it comes down to the fact that for forever, the legacy, and I just have to state this for the record, is that in the NFL, strength coaches have always been on the coach's page. Every website you go to, strength coaches are always labeled. You see the head coach, you see the line coaches, you don't see the medical staff, you don't see the athletic trainers. They're not on the coach's page. You will only see the strength coaches under coaches. And so I wasn't a coach in the NFL. It has been controversial in the sense that I've been told by others who, are women since then. Well, we all know strength coaches are not coaches in the NFL. And that to me is not accurate,
No.
because to me, it's, if you look at any of the other coaches that have been out there, we've all been blessed. But, you know, it's not me saying that. It's basically the legacy of the NFL has made strength coaches coaches. Now, maybe that's true in different sports, but that has not been my paradigm. But for whatever reason, I'm really grateful for how the sport has grown. But I believe it's very important that we honor history as well. And so that is sort of where I'm coming from, is that as strength coaches, we cannot be minimized and stated that we are not coaches when every collegiate team's got their strength coach on the sideline. Every NFL team has their strength coach on the sideline. Strength coaches are coaches. And that's just the simple truth of it. And so being a first coach, a line coach, a D-line coach, O-line coaches, I think all of that is going to be happening. But to overlook what doors that I was blessed to walk through, even though it wasn't marketed, even though my name non-gendered got me through the door, and it was my gifts that I was given, and perseverance and tenacity, and the knowledge that I'd been given to that date. Coach McCready will tell you, he goes, "You were the best man for the job." And so that's why I got the job. He didn't see me as a woman. He just said, you know, listen, the truth will be known, Lee, don't worry. And I've never worried. I didn't design my career around being the first woman in the NFL. It was a fact, but today, part of the reason we're speaking is because I honestly believe it's important that those who are in the industry know that there were people who fell on the right side of history. Thank God the Jets were visionaries back then. They even had a woman that was on their board of directors. That was the first board of director woman in the NFL. They were very inclusive under Mr. Leon Hess way back in the day. It wasn't advertised because it wasn't about that. They just wanted a winning legacy. But to me, it would be just such a shame to lose that magnificent, beautiful piece of NFL history that Coach McCready, Coach Coslett, these guys had the courage. Now, again, the way it was, head coach Coslett was not necessarily in the gym, but Coach Greg Robinson was. But Coach Coslett, the way that the NFL history worked back then was that the head coach would go, "I delegate to you, you hire whatever assistants you want." You know, that was the way it was done back then. And so I believe it was very easy for me to go under the radar. I would have no need to go into the front office. I would run every single line. I worked with a couple of other guys that were assistants with me at any given time, but I was there for over a year and a half. And I was the one sort of bridging the gap between the athletic training room to try, like the great Altoon, we were managing some injuries. Yeah. And so we were trying to get him back into the weight room, get him back on the field. So that was my job, was to bridge this gap and make sure that we knew this was, you know, prehabilitative, post-physical therapy work prior to that, because that was, again, my paradigm with my reattached arm. I knew how to do those baby steps prior to getting somebody back into the big global moves. So that was the bridging space that I was blessed to play. And so Coach McCready, that was my delegated job, that I would take the injured list and I would work them back into the gym. And then my job was to do whatever he told me to do. And I believe I did it really well. I just honestly believe it just shouldn't disappear for many reasons.
Well, I'm not going to let it disappear. That's for sure. And as long as this podcast keeps airing, that there'll be more added proof. You mentioned tenacity. So Lee, I want to know, with your continued tenacity, where are you going? Where next? What is the next great mountain in which you see off in the distance you're climbing?
You know, listen, I'm just a big believer that the second half is going to be better than the first half. So
that's great. Yes.
As far as I'm concerned, it's the sky is the limit. So a couple of things in the planning stages is a Guinness Book of World Record. As of right now, at the age of almost 56, I set the record at hitting the golf ball over 330 yards as the longest driving woman in competition to date. So I set the record like 3 years ago now on doing that, or maybe 4, whatever it was. It doesn't matter. There's a lot of wonderful messages here. You know, being a powerful, blessed, plus size woman. Plus size has gotten a bad name. You know, owning your power. women with menopause thinking your life is over. None of that is even true. It's all just mistruths and, misdiagnoses. We just know that movement is healing, positivity is healing. There's ways to reinvent your life. So I'm still going to be hitting a long ball. I'm still going to be training champions and engineering champions. I'm still going to be working on, we're getting ready to relaunch my new version of a consumer version of the advanced new spine technology, which is my 9 patents. That's underway as we speak. I can't disclose too much, but the answer is just stay posted. Follow me on @LeeBrandon Inc. on Instagram. I love mentoring these young women and men who call me. I try to answer every single call. So like this afternoon, I'm meeting with a couple of different folks, like the nutritionist from the Atlanta Braves. I'm working on a new nutrition line because I'm frustrated at so many things that are out there in the name of being healthy. And I'm just trying to produce a healthy line of fitness foods that basically would be delivering farms. So I'm here in the middle of farm country. So I've met so many amazing farmers. And so I've come up with, I'm going to come up with a line of products, but the first one out of the chute is going to be a protein bar, but really packed with real stuff, real eggs and real high quality antioxidants and minerals and nutrition, just a nutrition bar, but taste good. Because to me, if they're grainy and then, when I'm competing, I want something I can grab a bite of and set it down. And that's classically been a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. That's been my go-to for years because it doesn't upset your stomach. So I need something that's going to not be, too over the top, but something that all these athletes that are out there training. So we need recovery, we need performance, we need a sport performance recovery kind of a food delivery system from the farm to the athlete. And that's what I'm working on.
Oh my gosh. Well, and at some point in time, you'll actually get some sleep too, because it doesn't sound like that's what you do much of. Well, this has been amazing. I'm going to put all your contact information in the descriptions below, whether it's on the YouTube channel or on the podcast platforms. But this has been amazingly, and I can't wait to see what's next and the products that are coming out. I'll definitely be looking forward to that too. And
I'll keep you posted. And I'm just so grateful for the opportunity. I'm grateful to all of your listeners for you taking time, because all of us as coaches would be nothing without all of you there and our beautiful, like family of coaches and believers who believe in movement. Because to me, there's a whole generation that now are growing up in COVID who don't know or love movement.
I love it. And that's a beautiful way to bring a really nice time with you to a close. Lee, this has been wonderful. I would invite you back. Let's maybe plan a date somewhere in the future, 6 months to a year down the road, when you're all these things are kind of coming to fruition, and we want to kind of get it out there to as many people as possible. I'd love to have you back.
Thank you. I'd be honored. And I'm just huge thank you to you, and I'm so grateful to everybody. So huge hugs. Mwah. Love to everybody.
And that's another episode of the Zelos podcast. I'm going to send us off with a little bit of Lee's music. Remember, you can go to iTunes and check out Lee Brandon. This is a shot called Down That Road. I want to say thanks to Lee and to everybody else for listening in. Be sure you subscribe and tell others. Share what's out there. We'll see you next week.
So hard to see the wind.